The blizzard came from the northwest at 23 miles per hour, carrying snow that moved horizontal across the Wyoming high desert like something with intent. Visibility was down to 200 feet. The temperature was 14 degrees. The wind chill was 6. And in the parking lot of the Laramie Summit Rest area, a man in a Hells Angels vest was walking toward a vending machine thinking about his daughter's soccer game when his chapter sister called out from the restroom entrance. "Forrest, look at the girl!" He stopped reading the text from his wife about a goal scored in the second half. Looked up. Looked where Della was pointing. An 8-year-old child stood in the parking lot wearing a yellow cotton sundress. No coat. White canvas sneakers with Velcro closures. No socks. Her fingertips were blue even from 30 feet away. A woman in a dark wool coat stood 8 inches to the child's right side. The child's posture was rigid, exact. Like someone had placed her there with a ruler and told her not to move. But it was the child's eyes that made Forrest cover the 34 feet in 9 seconds without appearing to hurry. The way those eyes tracked across the parking lot, landing on every adult assessing, calculating, searching. That was not the look of a child on a road trip with her mother. That was the look of someone who had been performing normality under threat for a very long time and was running out of time to perform. Forrest kept the coffee cup in his hand because a man with a coffee cup is a man on his way somewhere ordinary. His boots made steady sounds on the plowed concrete. The automatic restroom door cycled behind him with a hydraulic sigh. A semi-truck idled in the commercial section. The wind howled and threw snow against the picnic shelter, and the child in the yellow sundress did not move, did not shiver, just stood perfectly still and watched him walk closer. At 10 feet she made her decision. Her right hand rose from her side to chin height, palm facing inward, fingers together. The movement was small, controlled, practiced. The ASL sign for help performed with the precision of someone who had rehearsed it in her head for hours, waiting for exactly the right person to show it to. Forrest saw it, processed it in 1.4 seconds. His face did not change. He kept walking past the child and the woman in the wool coat, past the moment of eye contact that lasted less than a breath, straight to the vending machine 8 feet beyond them. He bought a water bottle, turned around, made eye contact with the child again. His left hand hidden behind the water bottle made 2 signs, not standard ASL phrasing. He assembled it from separate pieces, but the message was clear enough. I see you. The child's shoulders dropped approximately 3 degrees, from rigid to something that was not quite relaxed but was closer to hope than she had been in 19 hours and 7 minutes. Forrest saw the change, nodded once, walked back toward the restroom building. 0 words spoken. 3.4 seconds of communication. 2 people talking across 3 feet of wind and snow in a language the woman standing between them did not speak. That was the moment. The hinge point. The thing that would later be described in federal testimony as the intercept that prevented delivery to a known trafficking network operation spanning 4 states in 11 years. But right now, in this moment with snow coming down and the temperature dropping and the wind chill making every breath feel like glass, it was just a biker and a child. Hands speaking what voices could not. In plain sight, in a Wyoming blizzard. Forrest reached the restroom building and pulled out his phone, texted Della 1 word. Amber. Della called 911 at 2:33 in the afternoon. Forrest walked back to the covered picnic area. Moved deliberately, not fast enough to alarm, not slow enough to give the woman in the wool coat time to think. He crouched to the child's eye level, spoke quietly. Hi, I'm Forrest. I need you to walk with me right now. Just walk with me. The child looked at him. At the hearing aid in his right ear, at his face, at the vest with the Hells Angels patch. She had assessed 23 adults across 5 stops in the last 19 hours and concluded that none of them were the right person. Not because she was wrong about them, because she was right. This one was different. She walked with him. 3 feet, 6 feet. They were at the covered picnic shelter when the woman in the wool coat came through the restroom door and scanned the parking lot and did not see them immediately through the horizontal snow. Forrest was already texting a license plate number to Della. Montana plates. The Shell LLC registration would ping a federal watch list flag at 2:36, but that was still 4 minutes away. Right now, Forrest took off his vest and put it around the child's shoulders. The Hells Angels patch covered her entire back. The vest was almost as large as she was. You're safe, he said. I've got you. We're not going anywhere without you. The child reached into a hidden pocket in her yellow sundress. Produced a laminated photograph the size of a library card. A woman with white hair and kind eyes, hands positioned mid-sign in the photo. She taught me the signs, the child said. Her voice was steady. Too steady for an 8-year-old who had just been rescued. Still in performance mode. Still holding it together because that was how you survived when the alternative was breaking and you could not afford to break. Not yet. Forrest looked at the photograph, looked at the child. She taught you, right? he said. Now tell me everything you remember. And the child, 8 years old, 19 hours in captivity without breaking once, gave Forrest everything she had been memorizing since Saturday evening when a woman she recognized as her neighbor's occasional visitor pulled up in a silver Camry and asked if she wanted to see a puppy. Kayla Thompson had been 4 feet from her front door when Nicole Carter took her. Her mother was inside making dinner. The door was open. Kayla could hear the television, could smell pasta sauce, could see the living room lamp through the screen door. 4 feet, 90 seconds. Gone. That was 19 hours and 7 minutes ago. Now standing in a picnic shelter in Wyoming with a stranger's vest around her shoulders and snow blowing on 3 sides and her feet so cold they had stopped feeling like feet, about an hour ago Kayla told Forrest everything. The name Gerald. The phone number ending in 4471. Valley View, Pocatello. 6 p.m. Nicole's name. The license plate MT4RKH291. The gas stations. The McDonald's. The rest stops. The people who saw and the people who saw and looked away. All of it delivered in 3 minutes and 47 seconds, with the same controlled precision she had used to make the sign for help. When she finished, Forrest texted a summary to someone named Crowbar. Then he pulled a granola bar from his vest pocket and handed it to Kayla. When did you eat last yesterday? Dinner. That was 24 hours ago. Kayla looked at the granola bar like it might disappear if she reached for it too fast. Forrest saw the look, recognized it. The hesitation of someone who had learned that nothing was guaranteed, that food could be taken away, that survival meant not appearing too hungry, too needy, too much of anything. Nobody's going to take it, he said gently. You can eat as much or as little as you want. You can save half for later if you want. It's yours. Kayla took the bar, unwrapped it slowly, took a small bite, chewed carefully. Her hands were shaking, but her face remained calm. Still performing, still holding the line. Forrest did not push. Just sat beside her on the picnic bench and watched the parking lot where the woman in the wool coat was now walking toward them. Fast. Not running. But fast enough that Forrest stood up and positioned himself between Kayla and the approaching woman. Excuse me, the woman called out. That's my daughter, ma'am, Forrest said. His voice was level, carried authority without volume. I need you to stop walking and stay where you are. The voice came from behind the woman. Della standing at the restroom entrance with her phone to her ear, the 911 dispatcher still on the line. The woman stopped. At 2:47 in the afternoon, 2 Wyoming Highway Patrol units pulled into the rest stop from opposite directions. They had been 11 and 14 minutes away when the dispatcher put out the call. Possible child abduction, Amber Alert criteria, suspect vehicle, Montana plates, rest stop location confirmed. At 2:53, the woman who called herself Nicole Carter was in handcuffs in the back of a patrol car. Miranda rights had been read. She had asked if someone could call her neighbor about her mail, as if that were the thing that needed handling. Forrest walked to the silver Camry, opened the glove compartment, found a stuffed rabbit under a gas receipt and a pair of gloves that had been taken away from a child who was shivering badly and then given back only when approaching other people who might ask questions. Gray velveteen, one worn ear. He brought the rabbit back to the picnic shelter, held it out to Kayla without ceremony. Kayla took Harold with both hands, put the photograph of her grandmother Rose in the hidden pocket her grandmother had sewn specifically for treasures. Looked at Forrest, did not say anything. Some things do not require words. But let's go back, because Kayla did not start this story at a rest stop in a blizzard wearing a summer dress and blue fingertips. She started at 19 hours earlier on a Saturday evening in the front yard of her family's home on Rimrock Road in Billings, Montana. 7:40 p.m., February. The sky was already dark. Kayla had been outside for exactly 6 minutes, testing how long she could stand on one foot with her eyes closed, because that was the kind of thing you did when you were 8, and waiting for your mother to finish making spaghetti and call you in for dinner. The silver Camry pulled up to the curb. Kayla recognized the car, had seen it parked at the neighbor's house 3 or 4 times over the past month. The woman driving was someone the neighbor knew. That made her safe enough for a 6-minute conversation about a puppy. Hi, sweetie. Is your mom home? Kayla looked toward the front door. It was open. She could see the television through the screen, could hear her mother humming in the kitchen. She's making dinner, the woman smiled, warm, friendly, the kind of smile that belonged to someone's aunt or a teacher or a daycare provider, which Nicole Carter was. Licensed, 6 enrolled children, fully compliant, 0 red flags except for 1 complaint in 2021 that went unresolved because the documentation looked fine and Nicole presented as exactly what she was supposed to be. I just got a puppy, the woman said. He's in the car. Do you want to see? Just for a second. Then you can go eat dinner. Kayla loved dogs. Her mother said they could not afford one right now, but someday. Someday was Kayla's favorite word. Someday meant possibility, someday meant a dog and a bigger bedroom and maybe a trip to see the ocean. She walked to the car, 4 feet from her front door. The woman opened the back door. There was no puppy. Kayla turned to run. The woman's hand closed around her wrist. Not rough, firm. The grip of someone who had done this before and knew exactly how much pressure was needed to control without leaving marks. "Get in the car!" Kayla opened her mouth to scream. "I need you to understand something." The woman's voice was very quiet, very calm. "If you scream, if you tell anyone, if you make any signal or do anything except walk normally and answer nicely, I will go back to this house, and I will hurt your mother and your grandmother Rose. I know their names, I know where they live, I know where your grandmother goes every Tuesday for physical therapy. Do you understand me?" Kayla understood. She got in the car, the woman closed the door, walked around to the driver's side, started the engine, pulled away from the curb at exactly the speed limit. Sandra Thompson came to the front door at 7:43 to call Kayla in for dinner. Kayla was gone. The Amber Alert was issued at 11:47, 4 hours and 7 minutes after the disappearance. Delayed by the initial assumption that Kayla had wandered to a neighbor's house. Delayed by the 45-minute neighborhood search. Delayed by processing time at the Billings Police Department missing persons intake. The alert went active. It propagated to Montana law enforcement immediately. It would reach the Wyoming Highway Patrol's active dispatch at 4:17 Sunday afternoon, 9 hours and 20 minutes after Forrest saw Kayla at the rest stop. That gap has appeared in 2 federal audits as a documented interstate Amber Alert coordination failure. 0 corrective action has been implemented, but we will come back to that. Right now, at hour 1 Saturday, 8:40 p.m., Kayla was in the back seat of Nicole's Camry, listening to the threat she would never forget, and making a decision that would save her life. She would not scream, she would not signal, she would walk normally and answer nicely, but she would remember everything, every turn, every mile marker, every gas station, every person who saw her. And when the right moment came, when the right person appeared, she would give them everything she had memorized and let them build the case that would bring Nicole Carter and everyone connected to her network down. Because Kayla's grandmother Rose had taught her something that Nicole did not know about. Rose Thompson was 72 years old. She had been deaf since birth. She had taught Kayla basic sign language the same way she taught her to read and tie her shoes, because Rose believed that hands should be able to speak when voices cannot. Kayla knew approximately 40 signs. Help, danger, police, please, mother, hurt, safe, home. She knew the alphabet. She knew how to sign her name and her mother's name and her grandmother's name. She knew how to ask for water and say thank you and tell someone she was scared. What Kayla did not know, what Rose had never told her, was why Rose believed so strongly that hands needed to speak. Rose had been 7 years old in 1961 when a man who worked at her father's factory offered to drive her home from school because it was raining. Rose could not hear, could not call for help. The man took her somewhere else instead. She was missing for 4 days. A construction worker found her in an abandoned building on the 4th day. The construction worker was deaf. Rose had been signing help over and over for 72 hours. 17 people had walked past that building. The construction worker was the first one who understood what her hands were saying. Rose never told Kayla this story. Never told her daughter Sandra either. Some things you carry alone because telling them means making someone else carry the weight. But Rose taught Kayla the signs anyway, just in case. Because the world was full of people who walked past abandoned buildings. And if you were very lucky, you met one person who stopped and looked and understood. Kayla thought about her grandmother as the Camry headed south on Interstate 90, then west on Interstate 90 again. Thought about the photograph in the hidden pocket of her dress. The photo Rose had given her last Christmas. Rose making the sign for Brave, captured mid-motion, smiling at whoever was behind the camera. Kayla touched the pocket. The photo was still there, still safe. Her grandmother had sewn that pocket specifically for treasures. Kayla kept library cards in there. A lucky penny she found on the playground, a note from her best friend Maya that said, "You are the nicest person I know," in purple crayon. And now the photograph, Rose signing Brave. Kayla decided that was what she would be. Brave did not mean not scared. Her grandmother taught her that. Brave meant you were scared and you did it anyway. So Kayla would be scared. And she would memorize everything. And she would wait for someone who understood the language her grandmother taught her. Hour 2. 9:40 p.m. The Camry was on Interstate 90 westbound. Nicole had not spoken since the threat. Kayla sat in the back seat and counted mile markers. Watched the reflective signs flash past in the headlights. Billings, Laurel, Columbus, Big Timber. She memorized the sequence. If she got away, when she got away, she would need to tell someone where she had been. At 10:15, Nicole pulled into a gas station in Big Timber. Got out, pumped gas, went inside to pay, left Kayla in the car with the doors locked. Kayla watched through the window. A man was pumping gas at the next island. He glanced at the Camry, looked away. A woman walked past with a coffee cup, made eye contact with Kayla through the window. Kayla held the eye contact, tried to make her face say help without moving, without making a signal that Nicole would see when she came back. The woman looked at Kayla, looked toward the gas station store where Nicole was paying, looked back at Kayla. Then she looked down at her coffee cup and walked to her car and got in and sat there for 47 seconds without starting the engine. Kayla counted the seconds, counted the decision happening behind the steering wheel. The woman was deciding whether to do something, whether to call someone, whether to get involved in something that might be nothing. At 47 seconds, the woman started her engine and drove away. Kayla added her to the count. Person number 3 who saw something and chose not to see. The first 2 had been at the neighbor's house. A man walking his dog as Nicole's car pulled away. A teenager on a skateboard who looked right at Kayla's face in the back window as they turned the corner. Everyone saw. Nobody stopped. Nicole came back to the car, got in, pulled out of the gas station. Kayla watched the woman's taillights disappear down the highway. Thought about her grandmother. About 72 hours signing help in an abandoned building. About 17 people walking past. Kayla was not going to sign help for 72 hours. She was going to wait for the right person. The one who would stop. The one who would understand. Hour 3, 11 p.m. The Camry crossed into Wyoming. Kayla had never been to Wyoming before. Her mother said they would go someday. Someday to Yellowstone. Someday to see the geysers and the bears. This was not someday. This was the wrong way to see Wyoming. Nicole pulled into another gas station. Sheridan. 1:37 a.m. hour 6. Kayla was supposed to be asleep. Nicole thought she was asleep. But Kayla had learned at hour 1 that sleeping meant not knowing. Not knowing meant missing something. Missing something might mean missing the only chance. So she lay in the back seat with her eyes closed and her breathing slow and listened to Nicole make a phone call outside the car. I'm on schedule. Weather's slowing me down, but I'll make Pocatello by 6. Pause. Listening. She's quiet. Cooperative. No problems. Longer pause. Gerald, I need this to be the last one. I'm telling you I can't. Even longer pause. Nicole's voice changed. Smaller. I know what I owe. I'm just saying after this one. Pause. Valley View. Same as the last 3. I know the protocol. Pause. Fine. 6 p.m. Tell them I'll call when I'm an hour out. Long pause. Her voice changed again. Softer. Her name is Kayla. She's 8. She hasn't cried once. Nicole disconnected. Stood beside the car for another 30 seconds. Then got back in and drove. Kayla repeated the words to herself. Gerald. Valley View, Pocatello. 6 p.m. The last 3. The phone number's last 4 digits, 4471, which she had seen on the screen when Nicole dialed. She repeated them the way her 3rd grade teacher taught her to memorize multiplication tables. Over and over. Building the case file. Waiting for the right person to give it to. She did not understand everything she had heard, but she understood enough. This was not the first time. Nicole had done this before. At least 3 times before based on the last 3. And somewhere in Idaho there was a place called Valley View that received children like packages, and somewhere a man named Gerald was coordinating it all. Hour 7, 2:30 a.m. Sunday morning. Kayla's feet were cold. She had been wiggling her toes every few minutes since hour 2 the way her grandmother taught her when they went ice skating last winter. Keep the blood moving. Keep the feeling there. But her canvas sneakers with no socks were never meant for February in Wyoming, and the car heater only reached the front seat, and her toes had started to go numb around hour 5. She did not tell Nicole. Did not ask for the coat Nicole had brought. Nicole had given her the coat for 20 minutes at hour 4 when Kayla was shivering badly, then took it back when they stopped at a rest stop and there were other people around. The message was clear. The coat was not for Kayla's comfort. The coat was for appearances. So Kayla wiggled her toes and tried not to think about frostbite. Tried not to think about her mother waking up to an empty house. Tried not to think about her grandmother Rose getting the phone call that would break her heart. Instead, she thought about the signs. Practiced them in her head. Help, danger, police, the alphabet, her name, K-A-Y-L-A, her mother's name, S-A-N-D-R-A, her grandmother's name, R-O-S-E. She would need them. When the right person came, she would need to remember. Hour 10, 5:15 a.m. Dawn was starting to break over Wyoming, gray light filtering through snow clouds. The Camry pulled into a McDonald's in Casper. Nicole ordered coffee and a breakfast sandwich at the drive-thru. Pulled into the parking lot, ate in the car, offered Kayla 3 bites of the sandwich and a sip of orange juice. Kayla ate carefully, did not ask for more, said thank you. Perform normality the way Nicole required. At 6:20, Nicole went inside to use the restroom, took Kayla with her, held her hand the entire way across the parking lot. Not a mother's hand, a guard's hand. The grip that said, "You will not run because I will catch you and it will be worse." Inside there was a line. A man in civilian clothes stood behind them. Jeans, flannel shirt, but he had the bearing of someone in law enforcement even without the uniform. The way he scanned the restaurant, the way he stood, the weight distribution of someone who had worn a duty belt for years. He noticed Kayla's yellow sundress, leaned down. "You must be cold, sweetheart," Nicole answered before Kayla could. She spilled on her coat. "Kids." She laughed. The man laughed. Kayla looked at his face, saw the shape of authority in the lines around his eyes, saw 20-something years of experience, saw someone who might understand. She shook her head, very slightly, left, right. The smallest signal she could make without Nicole seeing. The man did not see it. He was looking at Nicole, listening to her explain about the spilled juice and the coat and the laundry, and aren't children messy. He got his coffee, sat down at a table, did not call anything in. A neatly dressed woman with a plausible explanation and a laughing manner does not trigger the pattern match. He had 23 years of experience. He had procedures and protocols and training that said trust calm adults who make eye contact and have ready explanations. He looked at the woman instead of the child. He would remember the yellow sundress at 4:17 p.m. when the Amber Alert finally reached his personal phone. By then, Kayla would already be safe. The gap between those two moments, the moment he could have acted, and the moment he learned he should have, would follow Wyoming State Trooper Marcus Thornton for the rest of his career. But right now, at 6:30 a.m., he was drinking coffee and reading his phone, and Kayla was walking back to the parking lot with Nicole's hand on her shoulder and another person added to the count. Person number 7, who saw and chose procedure over instinct. Hour 12. 8 a.m. The Camry was on Interstate 80 westbound. The landscape had changed, flatter, more desolate. Wind coming across open range with nothing to stop it. The snow had started around 7, light at first, then heavier. Nicole was gripping the steering wheel tighter, checking the weather on her phone at every stoplight. The blizzard was not supposed to be this bad. The blizzard was going to make them late. Kayla watched the snow and thought about her grandmother, about the photograph in her pocket, about hands that speak. She was so tired, had not slept in 28 hours. Her body wanted to shut down. Her mind wanted to stop holding the careful performance of normality. But she could not stop, not yet, because stopping meant giving up. And her grandmother did not give up in an abandoned building. Her grandmother signed help for 72 hours until the right person came. So Kayla would stay awake, would keep memorizing, would keep waiting. Hour of 10:15 a.m. Rollins rest stop. Nicole needed gas and coffee, and the blizzard was getting worse. She pulled into the rest area, parked, took Kayla to the restroom. Inside, 2 women were at the sinks. One was 50-something, professional clothes. The air of someone important. The other was younger, an assistant maybe. They were talking about being behind schedule. The older woman looked at Kayla in the mirror, looked at the yellow sundress, looked at Kayla's face. Kayla was shivering visibly now, had been since hour 10, could not stop it anymore. The older woman looked at Nicole. Rough morning, Nicole said. Long story. The woman dried her hands. The assistant started to say something. Did that seem... We're 40 minutes behind. Let's go. They left. Walked out to the parking lot, got in their car, drove away. Kayla watched them through the restroom window, added them to the count, person number 9 and 10, who saw a child shivering in a summer dress in a Wyoming rest stop in February and chose 40 minutes over one question. What the women did not know, what Kayla would learn years later, was that the older woman was Wyoming State Senator Patricia Hayes. She chaired the Child Safety and Family Services Subcommittee. She had a report in her office file cabinet about the Interstate 80 corridor being an active trafficking route. The report had been there for 8 months. She had the authority to bring it to a floor vote. She chose not to. 40 minutes in a parking lot. One unfinished question. A child who might not be safe if someone else did not act. Senator Hayes would receive the Amber Alert at 4:17 p.m. Kayla would already be safe. The calculation she made in that rest stop bathroom, the 40 minutes against the cost of asking, would be something she carried for the rest of her legislative career. But right now, at 10:23 a.m., she was driving west on Interstate 80, and Kayla was walking back to Nicole's car, and the count was at 10. Hour 16, noon. The blizzard was a full whiteout now. visibility down to almost nothing. Nicole pulled over at another rest stop, not because she wanted to, because driving was becoming impossible. Kayla's feet had stopped hurting around hour 14. That was worse than hurting. Her grandmother told her once about frostbite, about how it started with pain and then went to numbness and then you lost the feeling entirely, and that was when the damage was happening. Kayla wiggled her toes, could barely feel them, tried not to think about what that meant. Nicole sat in the driver's seat and stared at the snow and checked her phone. No signal. The blizzard had killed the cell towers. She could not call Gerald. Could not tell him they were going to be late. For the first time since Saturday evening, Nicole looked worried. She turned around, looked at Kayla in the back seat. "Are you cold?" Kayla nodded. It was the first honest answer she had given in 16 hours. Nicole looked at her for a long moment. Then she reached into the passenger seat and pulled out the coat, the one she had given and taken back 3 times already. She handed it to Kayla. "Put this on, just for a little while." Kayla put on the coat. It was adult-sized, swallowed her entirely, but it was warm. She pulled it around herself and felt her body start to shake as the warmth hit the cold. Delayed reaction. The shivering she had been suppressing for hours. Nicole watched her in the rearview mirror. "You haven't cried," she said. "Not once. Most kids cry." Kayla did not answer, did not know what to say, did not know if this was a trick or a test or just an observation. Nicole was quiet for another moment. Then she said, "Very softly you remind me of someone." Kayla looked at her, at the back of her head, at the reflection of her face in the rearview mirror, saw something there that had not been there before, something that looked almost like regret. But then Nicole looked away, started the engine, pulled back onto Interstate 80. And 20 minutes later, when they stopped at the next rest area, and there were people in the parking lot, Nicole took the coat back. The performance resumed. The coat had been for survival, not comfort, not kindness, just the minimum needed to deliver a product in acceptable condition. Kayla understood. She was not a child to Nicole. She was inventory, and inventory needed to arrive intact. Hour 19, 2:26 p.m., Laramie Summit Rest Area. Nicole pulled into the parking lot and put the car in park and sat there for a moment with her hands on the steering wheel. The blizzard showed no signs of stopping. They were hours behind schedule. Gerald would be calling, would be wondering, would be angry. Nicole got out, told Kayla to stay in the car, walked to the restroom building. Kayla sat in the back seat, looked at the parking lot through snow that moved like a living thing. 11 vehicles, 4 big trucks, 3 family cars, 2 motorcycles under tarps, and people walking between buildings, moving through the storm. She had been waiting for 19 hours and 7 minutes, had assessed 23 adults across 5 stops, had memorized everything, had held herself together through cold and fear and exhaustion. And now she was looking at the parking lot, at the people, searching for the one who would understand. She saw him walking toward the vending machine, a man in a leather vest, big, moving with the deliberate ease of someone who did not need to prove anything. And on the right side of his head, visible even from 40 feet away in the blowing snow, a hearing aid. Kayla's heart stopped, then started again, faster, a hearing aid. Her grandmother Rose had a hearing aid, the expensive kind that Medicare helped pay for. Rose wore it every day, showed Kayla how it worked, explained that some people heard with their ears and some people heard with their hands and some people used both. This man with the vest and the deliberate walk and the hearing aid, this man might know, this man might speak the language her grandmother taught her. Kayla watched him walk toward the vending machine, watched Nicole come out of the restroom, watched the moment converge. This was it. This was the right person or there would be no right person. This was the moment or there would be no moment. Her hand went to the hidden pocket in her dress, felt the photograph, Rose making the sign for brave. "Okay, Grandma. Okay, I'm ready." Nicole walked back to the car, told Kayla to come with her. They needed to wait inside where it was warmer, needed to wait for the storm to pass. They walked across the parking lot, Nicole's hand on Kayla's shoulder. The performance resuming. Mother and daughter, road trip, everything normal, everything fine. The man with the hearing aid was at the vending machine, getting closer with every step. Kayla's grandmother had taught her 40 signs. She had practiced them in her head for 19 hours, had waited for exactly this moment, for exactly this person. At 10 feet she made her decision. Her right hand rose from her side, palm facing inward, fingers together, moving to chin height with the deliberate precision of someone who had rehearsed this in her mind 1,000 times in the last 6 hours. The sign for help. The man saw it. His eyes met hers. His face did not change. He kept walking, bought his water bottle, turned around, made eye contact again. His left hand moved behind the water bottle. 2 signs. Quick, hidden from Nicole, visible to Kayla. I see you. Kayla's shoulders dropped. The performance cracked for just a second. Just long enough for hope to flood in. Long enough for her to understand that she had been right. This was the person. This was the moment. Her grandmother's voice in her memory. Hands can speak when voices cannot, baby girl. Don't ever forget that. Kayla had not forgotten. And now someone was answering. Forrest Brennan walked Kayla Thompson to the covered picnic shelter through snow that cut horizontal across the Wyoming high desert. 30 feet felt like 300. Every step was wind and cold, and the knowledge that the woman in the wool coat would emerge from that restroom any second and this window of safety would close. But they made it. Kayla's canvas sneakers leaving small prints in the fresh snow, Forrest's boots breaking trail ahead of her. And when they reached the shelter and the wind dropped from a roar to a howl, Forrest took off his Hells Angels vest and wrapped it around her shoulders. You're safe, he said. I've got you. We're not going anywhere without you. The vest was enormous on her. The patch on the back covered her from shoulders to waist. But it was warm. Heavy leather still carrying Forrest's body heat. Kayla pulled it tight around herself and felt her body start to shake. Not from cold. From the sudden absence of threat. From the realization that for the first time in 19 hours someone was standing between her and the woman who took her. Kayla reached into the hidden pocket of her yellow sundress, the one her grandmother Rose had sewn in last summer specifically for treasures. Her fingers found the laminated photograph. Pulled it out. Held it so Forrest could see. She taught me the signs, Kayla said. Forrest looked at the photograph. An older woman with white hair and kind eyes, hands positioned mid-sign. The shape of it suggested brave, though the motion was frozen mid-execution. He looked from the photograph to Kayla. At this 8-year-old child who had just survived 19 hours by being smarter and stronger than most adults he knew. She taught you right, he said. Now tell me everything you remember. And Kayla told him. Gerald, phone number ending in 4471, Valley View, Pocatello, 6 p.m. Nicole Carter's name. The license plate MT4RKH291. The gas stations in Big Timber and Sheridan. The McDonald's in Casper, where a man who looked like police saw her sundress and accepted Nicole's explanation. The rest stop in Rollins, where 2 women saw her shivering and walked away. She gave him all of it in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Names, numbers, locations, times. The kind of detailed testimony that criminal investigators spend hours extracting from adult witnesses. Delivered by an 8-year-old child who had memorized it all because her 3rd-grade teacher taught her that remembering things in order made them easier to recall. When she finished, Forrest pulled out his phone, texted someone named Crowbar with a summary. Then he looked at Kayla again. Can you be brave for 2 more minutes, he asked. Just 2 more minutes. Then you don't have to be brave anymore. I'll do it. Kayla looked at him, at the hearing aid, at his face, at the way he was asking instead of telling, the way he was treating her like a person instead of a problem. Okay, she said. She had been brave for 19 hours. 2 more minutes felt possible. Nicole Carter came out of the restroom at 2:46, scanned the parking lot, saw the picnic shelter through the horizontal snow, saw Forrest, saw Kayla wrapped in his vest. She walked toward them, fast, not running. But the kind of fast that meant she understood something had changed. Excuse me, she called out. That's my daughter, ma'am? The voice came from behind her. I need you to stop walking and stay where you are. Nicole stopped, turned, saw a woman in a Hells Angels vest standing at the restroom entrance. Phone to her ear, the universal posture of someone on a call with dispatch. Nicole's face did not change. She smiled, held up her hands in a gesture of confused cooperation. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said. That's my daughter. We're just traveling through. She gets cold easily, and this nice man was helping her warm up. The woman did not lower her phone. Ma'am, you need to stay where you are. Law enforcement is on the way. Nicole's smile held, but something behind her eyes shifted. The calculation happening in real time. Run or stay, fight or perform. The math of someone who had done this before and knew the probabilities. She stayed, kept smiling, kept her hands visible, kept performing the role of confused mother until the Wyoming Highway Patrol units pulled into the rest stop at 2:47 from opposite directions. At 2:53, Nicole Carter was in handcuffs. Miranda rights read, evidence being cataloged. The silver Camry with Montana plates becoming a crime scene. And in the picnic shelter, Forrest Brennan sat with Kayla Thompson and tried to remember how to breathe. He had not thought about Kandahar in 6 weeks. That was a record. Usually the memories came every few days. The smell of burning fuel, The sound of the IED detonation. The child's face, the way the boy's hands had moved. But looking at Kayla, now wrapped in his vest holding a stuffed rabbit he had retrieved from the glove compartment of Nicole's car, Forrest was back in Afghanistan, whether he wanted to be or not. Forward operating based wire. Summer 2009, temperature 112 degrees. Forrest had been a combat medic with the 82nd Airborne. 26 years old, second deployment, good at his job, good at keeping people alive in situations designed to kill them. The interpreter's name was Rashid. He was deaf, born that way. But he could read lips in English and Pashto and Dari. Could sign in ASL and Afghan sign language. The unit commander kept him on staff specifically because he could communicate with local children who could not or would not speak. Forrest started learning sign language because there was not much else to do during downtime, and Rashid was patient, and the local kids responded better when Forrest could sign simple things. Hello. Safe. Water. Home. The boy's name was Amir, 7 years old. He lived in a village 3 kilometers from the base. His father was a carpenter. His mother baked bread. Amir was deaf and small for his age, and he used to come to the base fence and sign questions to Rashid about the helicopters. On a Tuesday in July, an IED went off in the village market. Amir was buying rice for his mother. The blast radius caught him full. By the time the medevac reached the village, Amir was dying. Shrapnel wounds, internal bleeding. The kind of trauma that required a surgical suite and hours of time they did not have. Forrest worked on him anyway. Did everything right according to training. Established airway, controlled bleeding, started fluids, prepped for transport, all while Amir's hands moved, signing the same thing over and over. Help, help, help. Forrest signed back. Safe, you're safe. We're taking you to the doctors. You're safe. But he was not safe. They both knew it. Forrest was saying the words because that was what you did when someone was dying and you needed them to be calm. You lied. You made promises you could not keep. You held their hand and told them everything would be fine while their blood pressure dropped and their breathing shallowed and the light went out of their eyes. Amir died in the helicopter. Forrest was holding his hand when it happened. The boy's last sign was not help, it was thank you. Forrest had carried that for 14 years. The weight of a child who died while Forrest lied to him. The question of whether honesty would have been kinder. The knowledge that he had done everything right according to training, and it had not been enough. He left the military in 2010, drifted for 2 years. Bartending, construction, security work, drinking too much, sleeping too little, seeing Amir's face every time he closed his eyes. He joined the Hells Angels Wyoming chapter in 2012. Not because he wanted to ride motorcycles, because the chapter president, a man named Wacken, had looked at Forrest across a bar and said, "You got the look of someone carrying something too heavy to carry alone." We got room for that here if you want it. The chapter became family. The rides became purpose. The brotherhood became the thing that kept Forrest upright when everything else felt like drowning. And now, 14 years after Amir, Forrest was sitting in a Wyoming rest stop with an 8-year-old girl who had survived by using the same language Forrest had learned to comfort a dying child. The circle closing in a way that felt like either redemption or cosmic cruelty, and Forrest was not sure which. Kayla was watching him. She had not said anything for 3 minutes. Just sat there holding Harold the rabbit and studying Forrest's face the way children do when they are trying to understand the adults around them. "Are you okay?" she asked. Forrest looked at her. At this child asking if he was okay when she was the one who had just been rescued from a kidnapping. "Yeah," he said. "I'm okay. Just thinking about someone I used to know, someone who needed help." "Yeah, someone who needed help. Did you help them?" Forrest was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I tried. But sometimes trying isn't enough." Kayla considered this. Looked down at Harold, then back at Forrest. "You helped me," she said. "That was enough." Something in Forrest's chest cracked. Not broke. Cracked. The kind of fracture that lets light in instead of out. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I did." Della walked over. She was Forrest's chapter sister, 39 years old. Rode a 1998 Harley Softail that she rebuilt herself. Had seen Forrest through the worst of the Kandahar nightmares when he first joined the chapter and did not ask questions when he woke up at 3 a.m. and needed to ride until the sun came up. "Troopers want to talk to her," Della said. Gently. "When she's ready." Forrest looked at Kayla. "You ready to talk to the police? What do I tell them?" "Everything you told me." "The truth. All of it. What if they don't believe me? They'll believe you, but even if they didn't, I believe you. Della believes you, and we're not going anywhere." Kayla nodded. Stood up, still wearing Forrest's vest, still holding Harold. "Can I keep these?" she asked. "Just for a little bit." "You keep them as long as you need," Forrest said. The Wyoming Highway Patrol interview took 43 minutes. Kayla repeated everything. The names, the numbers, the route, the people who saw her, and the people who saw her and walked away. A female trooper took notes, recorded it all. Treated Kayla with the careful gentleness of someone who understood exactly what kind of case this was becoming. When they finished, the trooper looked at her supervisor. He nodded, made a call, and at 3:34 the information Kayla had memorized over 19 hours was on its way to the FBI. While Kayla talked to troopers, Della made a call of her own, to the Wyoming chapter, to Road Captain Watkin, to a man who had built the chapter into what it was by understanding that brotherhood meant showing up when called. Child abduction, Della said. Interstate 80 rest stop. We have the girl. She's safe, but this is bigger than one operator. We need the network. Waken was in Casper, 70 miles east. He was on his bike in 4 minutes. On the phone to the Montana and Idaho chapters in 6. By 3:47 the rumble started, low and distant, building, the sound of motorcycles on interstate moving in formation. By 4:15, 163 riders were parked in perfect rows in the Laramie Summit Rest Area overflow lot. Wyoming chapter, Montana chapter, Idaho contingent. Every rider who could make the call on 90 minutes' notice. They did not come for a fight. They came because a child had been taken and a child had been rescued, and now there was work to do. Witnesses to interview, timeline to document. Every vehicle that had been in that parking lot between 2:15 and 2:45 needed to be identified and tracked. The Hells Angels do not do this for every case. They do it when law enforcement moves too slowly, when systems fail, when a child needs advocates who will not stop pushing until every thread is pulled and every connection is made. This was one of those cases. Sandstone was 72 years old, founding member of the Wyoming chapter. He had lost a daughter to trafficking in 1998. She was found 3 months later in Nevada, safe, physically. But the person who came back was not the person who was taken. Sandstone spent the rest of his life making sure other fathers did not carry the same weight. He approached a semi-driver from Omaha who had been parked in the lot at 2:30. "Excuse me, sir. Were you here about 90 minutes ago?" The driver looked at Sandstone. "At the vest? At the chapter patch?" "Yeah." "Why did you happen to notice a little girl in a yellow dress?" The driver's face changed. "Yeah. Thought it was weird. Summer dress in this weather. But the woman with her seemed normal. Had that teacher vibe." "Did you speak to them, no?" "Figured it wasn't my business." Sandstone pulled out a small notebook. "Can I get your name and contact info? Police are going to want to talk to you as a witness." The driver gave it. Sandstone wrote it down, thanked him, moved on to the next vehicle. No accusations, no anger, just documentation. By 4:47 the chapter had 6 witness statements. 3 people who saw Kayla, 2 who noticed something wrong but did not act, 1 who had been in the restroom when Della made the 911 call and could confirm the timeline. One of those witnesses was a woman named Patricia Vance, 43 years old, elementary school teacher from Laramie. She had been buying coffee from the vending machine at 2:38, walked right past Kayla and Nicole. A chapter member named Broadside sat down with her at a picnic table at 5:02, notebook open, voice gentle. "Ms. Vance, I understand you were here earlier this afternoon." Patricia's hands shook as she spoke. I saw the little girl, in the yellow dress. I walked right past them. Can you tell me what you noticed?" She was standing with a woman near the walkway. "And I noticed the dress. It was so thin, and her lips looked blue. But the woman with her was smiling, talking normally. So I thought maybe they'd just come from somewhere warm, that they hadn't expected the weather." "Did you speak to them?" "No. I got my coffee and I left. I got in my car and I drove away." Patricia looked at her hands. "And I kept thinking about that dress. Kept thinking something felt wrong. But I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was seeing problems that weren't there." Ms. Vance Broadside said quietly, "You weren't paranoid. You were right." Patricia's eyes filled. "I should have stopped. I should have said something. You're saying something now. And what you're telling me, the blue lips, the thin dress, the exact time, that's evidence. That matters. But she's already safe. Someone else saved her." Broadside leaned forward. "You want to know what this does? This statement proves the child was in visible distress in a public place. Proves the perpetrator was performing normally to blend in. When this goes to trial, your testimony shows the pattern. It matters." He slid the notebook across the table. "Will you write down everything you remember?" Patricia took the pen. Started writing. The second witness was harder. Marcus Thornton, off-duty Wyoming State Trooper, the man from the Casper McDonald's at 6:30 a.m., who had seen Kayla's sundress and accepted Nicole's explanation about a spilled coat. A chapter member named Flintlock, former federal prosecutor, 16 years in DOJ Child Exploitation Unit, found him at 5:34 p.m. Marcus was still at the rest stop, sitting in his personal vehicle, staring at his phone. The Amber Alert was on his screen. He had been staring at it since 4:17 p.m. when it came through. Flintlock knocked on the window. Marcus looked up, saw the Hells Angels vest roll down the window. "You're the trooper," Flintlock said. Not a question. Marcus nodded. "Mind if I sit?" Marcus unlocked the passenger door. Flintlock got in. Closed the door, sat in silence for 30 seconds. "Then how long have you been sitting here since the alert came through? You saw her this morning in Casper." Marcus's jaw tightened. "How did you know the girl told us?" "Described you. Said you had the bearing of someone in law enforcement, even in civilian clothes." Flintlock paused. "She said she tried to signal you. Small head shake. You didn't see it." Marcus closed his eyes. "I saw a woman with a child." The woman was calm, had an explanation, made eye contact, laughed. "Every training indicator has said safe, so I didn't push. Training indicators fail when the perpetrator knows what they are." "I know." Marcus's voice cracked. "I know that now." Flintlock pulled out a small recorder. "I need you to give a statement. Everything you saw, everything you heard, the exact words the woman used, the child's appearance, your assessment at the time. Why she's safe. You got her. Because there's a network. This wasn't her first pickup. And your statement, what you saw at 6:30 a.m., what the perpetrator said, how she performed normally, that builds the case for premeditation. Shows this was a practiced operation." Marcus stared at the recorder. "I had her right in front of me. I had 23 years of experience, and I looked at the woman instead of the child. That's not a personal failure," Flintlock said. "That's a protocol gap. There's no standard that says child safety questions get directed to the child, not the accompanying adult. You followed your training. Your training has a blind spot. We're going to make sure that gets fixed." Marcus pressed record. He talked for 11 minutes. When he finished, Flintlock said, "The FBI is going to want this. You good with that?" "Yeah." "One more thing. You're going to be asked to testify probably at trial. Defense is going to argue their client was just helping a friend's kid, that there was no intent to traffic. Your testimony that she had a practiced answer ready, that she redirected your question before the child could respond, that kills that defense." Marcus looked at him. "I'll testify." "Good man." Flintlock got out of the car. Marcus stayed sitting. The recorder was off, but his hands were still shaking. He would remember this moment for the rest of his career. Not as the time he failed, as the time he learned that doing everything right according to the book isn't enough when the book has gaps. The third witness did not want to talk. The Wyoming state legislator name, withheld by request, had left the rest stop 90 minutes before the chapter arrived. But Driftwood licensed clinical social worker, trauma-informed care specialist, had her phone number. He called at 6:03 p.m. "This is Representative Hayes." "I know who you are," Driftwood said. "I need 5 minutes of your time regarding an incident at the Rollins rest stop this morning." Silence. "I don't know what you're referring to." 10:15 a.m. Women's restroom. You and your assistant. 8-year-old girl in a yellow sundress visibly shivering. Woman with her said rough morning-long story. Your assistant started to ask a question. You said, "We're 40 minutes behind. Let's go." Longer silence. "How do you know that the girl is safe? She's in protective custody." She remembered you described the exchange verbatim. "I didn't know. I didn't see anything that, ma'am." "I'm not calling to accuse you of anything. I'm calling because you chair the Child Safety and Family Services Subcommittee. You've been presented with the Interstate 80 Corridor Trafficking Report for 3 consecutive sessions. The report documents this exact transit route as an active trafficking corridor. That report has never been brought to a floor vote. That report has budget implications, and the data isn't complete enough to... The data is ironclad. Federal audit multi-agency confirmation. And this morning, you looked at a child in a summer dress at a Wyoming rest stop in February and chose your schedule over the question your assistant was about to finish asking." The legislator's voice went cold. "I don't appreciate the implication. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You saw something. You made a calculation. 40 minutes in a parking lot versus stopping to ask one question. I need you to understand something. That calculation had a cost. The child you saw is safe because a biker who learned sign language read a hand gesture you didn't see, not because the system worked. The system, your subcommittee, your unfinished report, your 40-minute calculation, that system was 9 hours behind when it needed to be real-time." Silence, then quietly. "What do you want from me? Bring the report to a floor vote this session. No more delays, no more budget concerns, no more 40-minute calculations. Kids are dying on that corridor. You have the power to change that. Use it." He disconnected. The legislator sat in her office in Cheyenne, phone still to her ear, listening to dead air. At 6:47 p.m., she pulled the Interstate 80 Corridor Trafficking Report from her file cabinet. Read it for the 4th time. This time, she did not put it back. While the witnesses were giving statements, Crowbar was in his apartment in Cheyenne, turning a license plate into a road map. Crowbar was 41. former NSA contractor, the kind of digital forensics specialist who left government work because he got tired of being told what he was not allowed to find. He pulled the Shell LLC registration for Montana Plate 4RKH291 in 6 minutes. Traced it to a woman named Nicole Carter, daycare provider. Fully licensed, 0 red flags on paper. But Shell LLCs do not register vehicles. People do. Crowbar pulled Nicole's financials. Found payments, $8,400. Deposited 3 times in the last 18 months. Always 2 weeks after a child went missing in Montana. He traced the payment source. A business account. Howarth Wealth Management, Boise, Idaho. Registered to a man named Gerald Howarth. Crowbar called his contact at the FBI. Former colleague. Owed him more than one favor. I need you to run a name. Gerald Howarth. Boise financial advisor. I think he's coordinating something big. What kind of something? Trafficking network. Multi-state. We just pulled a kid out of a car in Wyoming. The car traces back to him. Send me everything you have. By 6:03, the FBI had opened an active case file. By 6:52, they had a search warrant for Gerald Howarth's office and a surveillance team on his house. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to the rest stop. Because while Crowbar was pulling digital threads and the FBI was mobilizing and the chapter was interviewing witnesses, Kayla was in an ambulance on her way to Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. Core temperature 96.4 degrees. Mild hypothermia. Early frostbite on the toes of both feet. Dehydration. Exhaustion. The ER doctor looked at her chart and said quietly to the attending medic, another 2 to 3 hours of exposure, and we'd be treating moderate hypothermia. She managed herself remarkably well. Della rode with her. Forrest followed in his truck. Neither of them said much during the drive. Just kept Kayla talking. About her grandmother. About Harold the rabbit. About anything except the last 19 hours. At the hospital, while doctors worked, Forrest stood in the waiting room and looked at his phone. A text from Crowbar. 3 words. We got him. Forrest called back, got who the coordinator, Gerald Howarth. Financial advisor in Boise. He's been running this network for at least 3 years. 8 acquisitions we can confirm. Your girl is number 8, Forrest closed his eyes. 8 children, 8 families, 8 lives destroyed. And Kayla had just unraveled all of it by memorizing a phone number. What happens now? FBI is moving on him tonight. Simultaneous warrants on his office and a facility in Pocatello called Valley View Child Placement Services. The place Kayla mentioned. It's the delivery point, Forrest said. Like she was a package. Like she was inventory. Crowbar was quiet for a moment. Forrest, the ledger we found, it goes back 11 years. We're still running the numbers, but preliminary count is 47 victims. 47. Yeah. Forrest sat down. 47 children. 11 years. 1 man in Boise with a FINRA-compliant practice and a scout troop lanyard coordinating it all. Where is he now? Forrest asked. His son's soccer game. Boise Central High School. Southfield. Forrest had a daughter. 11 years old, played soccer every Saturday. He thought about standing on a sideline watching her kick a ball into a net while federal agents built a case that would end his life. Thought about what his daughter would remember, about what Gerald Howarth's son would carry. You got people on him, Idaho chapter. 55 members. They're observing from a distance. Tell them to stay invisible until FBI moves. But don't let them leave that field, already done. Forrest hung up, looked at the emergency room doors. Behind them, Kayla was being treated for injuries that should never have happened. In front of him, the machinery of justice was finally moving, slowly, carefully, but moving. And somewhere in Boise, a man was coaching soccer, surrounded by families who trusted him, wearing a polo shirt with his company logo and a lanyard that said he cared about children. In 3 hours, that man would be in handcuffs. His son would watch it happen. And 47 families would get phone calls from the FBI explaining that their children had not wandered off or been involved in custody disputes. They had been sold. But we will come back to that. Right now at 7:23 p.m. Sandra Thompson walked through the automatic doors of Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. She had driven 447 miles through a blizzard, had been awake for 38 hours, had spent the last 26 hours believing she might never see her daughter alive again. A man in a Hells Angels vest stood up from the waiting room chair when she came in. He did not say anything, just held up a stuffed rabbit and a laminated photograph. Sandra looked at Harold, at the picture of her mother Rose, at this large, scarred, leather-vested man who had kept her daughter's treasures safe while Sandra drove through hell, wondering if she would make it in time. "She's in room 7, the man said. "They're finishing the exam. She asked for you. And she asked for these." He handed the rabbit and photo to Sandra. Sandra took them. Her hands were shaking. "Thank you," she said. Her voice broke. The man nodded. "She's the bravest kid I've ever met, and I need you to know what she did, how she survived, the way she held it together for 19 hours. That's not luck, that's her. She saved herself. We just showed up." Sandra pressed Harold against her chest, walked toward room 7. Behind her, Driftwood licensed clinical social worker, trauma-informed care specialist, member of the Wyoming chapter for 8 years, sat back down and waited. He would stay until Sandra was ready to leave. Would give her his card. Would make sure Kayla had access to therapists who specialized in trafficking cases. Would check in every week for the next year. Because that was what the chapter did. They did not just rescue. They stayed. In room 7, Sandra pushed open the door, saw her daughter sitting on an exam table, hospital gown, IV in her arm. Face pale, but alive, breathing, safe, Mom, Kayla said. Sandra crossed the room, pulled her daughter into her arms, held her the way you hold something you thought you lost forever. Held her and cried and did not let go for a very long time. Kayla did not cry, not yet. She was still in survival mode, still holding the performance together because letting it go meant breaking and she was not ready to break. But she held her mother. Held Harold. Kept the photograph of her grandmother Rose where she could see it. And for the first time in 19 hours she let herself believe that maybe, this was actually over. At 10:04, PM3, black SUVs, pulled into the parking lot of Boise Central High School. The soccer game had just ended. Families were packing up. Kids were grabbing water bottles and gear bags. Gerald Howarth was standing on the sideline checking his phone. Still no message from Nicole. She should have called hours ago. Something was wrong. FBI Special Agent Rebecca Keene stepped out of the lead vehicle. Flanked by 4 agents, they walked across the parking lot, past the bleachers, past the parents, past the children, straight toward the field. Gerald looked up, saw them coming. His face did not change. He slipped his phone into his pocket, smiled, started to turn toward his son. "Gerald Howarth." He stopped. "FBI, I need you to come with me." 23 families watched. 18 children turned to look. Gerald's son stood 15 feet away holding a soccer ball. "I think there's been a mistake," Gerald said. His voice was calm, friendly. The same voice he used at PTA meetings. "I'm happy to help with whatever this is about, but right now I'm coaching my son's game. Mr. Howarth, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking operation of a criminal enterprise and wire fraud." The parents in the bleachers went silent. Gerald's smile did not move. "I don't know what you think I've done, but I take child safety extremely seriously. It's why I volunteer." Agent Keene pulled out handcuffs. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Gerald looked at his son. At the parents. At the scout troop lanyard around his neck. He turned around. The handcuffs went on. Miranda rights were read. And in a parking lot in Boise, Idaho, a man who had coordinated the sale of 47 children over 11 years was arrested in front of the families who trusted him. He asked once quietly if someone could make sure his son got home safely, as if that were the thing that needed handling. At 10:47 p.m., the FBI executed simultaneous warrants at Valley View Child Placement Services in Pocatello and Howarth Wealth Management in Boise. Valley View's director, a woman named Patricia Voss, 49 years old, licensed clinical social worker, 22 years in child welfare, was arrested in her home. Charges included conspiracy to commit human trafficking fraud, operating a facility for illegal purposes. She asked if she could feed her cat before they took her. They said yes. At 11:34 p.m., the FBI began reviewing 14 placement files seized from Valley View. Each file had proper documentation, family interviews, background checks, home studies, everything a legitimate placement would have. The only thing wrong was the price. At 11:52 p.m., Crowbar's phone rang. "Agent Keene, we have the ledger. It's authenticated. 11 years of transactional records, 8 operators, 47 victims." Crowbar closed his eyes. 47. "That's our count so far. Could be more. The ledger uses first names only. We're cross-referencing with missing persons databases now. But based on dates and dollar amounts, we're looking at 47 children moved through this network since 2014. Crowbar was quiet for 10 seconds. "What's the total revenue?" $1.4 million paid out to operators, facility directors, attorneys, and network coordination. Howarth personally received $396,000 in coordination fees. Crowbar did the math. 47 victims, 12 years, 4 states, 1 man with a lanyard and a FINRA-compliant practice. What are the charges? Federal conspiracy to commit human trafficking, racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering? If everything holds, we're looking at life without parole. Good. Agent Crowbar. Mr. Crowbar's fine. The case you built, the witness statements, the data analysis, that's what closed the loop. We had pieces. You gave us the map, we had motivation. What's that? An 8-year-old girl who memorized a phone number and waited 19 hours for someone who could read her hands. Keene was quiet. She's safe now. Because of you, because of her. We just answered when she called. The house on Rimrock Road looked exactly the way Sandra Thompson remembered. Same front yard, same screen door, same concrete walkway where Kayla had been standing when Nicole Carter pulled up and asked about a puppy. Sandra stood in the driveway 3 days after the rescue and understood she could not stay here. Could not make Kayla walk through that door every day and see the spot. Could not ask her daughter to sleep in a bedroom that overlooked the place where someone had taken her. She had lived in this house for 6 years. It was supposed to be temporary, a stepping stone between the apartment after the divorce and something better someday. But someday kept getting pushed further away, and now someday needed to be today. She went inside, sat at the kitchen table, pulled out her phone, started making a list, moving truck rental, security deposit, first and last month rent, application fees, new furniture for Kayla's room because the furniture here was furniture from before and Kayla needed before to stay before. The numbers added up to $8,947. Sandra had $1,200 in savings, made $42,000 a year as a hospital admin assistant. Could maybe scrape together another $1,000 if she skipped every bill that was not immediately critical. Still $7,000 short. Might as well be $70,000. Might as well be impossible. She put her head in her hands. The knock came at 4:30. Sandra opened the door to find a man in a Hells Angels vest standing on her porch. Not Forrest. Someone older. Weathered face, kind eyes. Ms. Thompson, name's Wacken. Chapter president. Forrest told me you might need some help. Sandra blinked. I didn't ask for... No, ma'am. You didn't. But your daughter did. He held out an envelope. This is from the chapter. $11,200. You find the place you need. We'll help you move. Sandra stared at the envelope. I can't accept this. You're not accepting it. Kayla is. So she can sleep in a room that doesn't face the spot where someone took her. So you can give her a front door that doesn't make her count seconds. Sandra took the envelope, opened it, saw bills. Real money. More money than she had seen in one place in years. Why, she asked. Wacken looked past her. Into the house. At the living room where a child used to feel safe. 'Cause we remember what it's like when the system moves too slow. When you're drowning and everyone says help is coming, but help takes weeks and you got hours. We remember. So we show up. Sandra's hand stopped shaking. She looked at this stranger on her porch who was offering her a way out. A way forward. A way to give her daughter a room that did not remember. Thank you, she said. Find the place Wacken said. Call this number when you're ready to move. He handed her a card. We'll be there. On Thursday morning, Sandra signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment on the north side of Billings. Ground floor, deadbolt locks, security cameras in the hallway, a small balcony that faced a courtyard instead of a street. On Friday afternoon, 12 Hells Angels showed up with a moving truck. Sandstone, Broadside, Della. Driftwood, Forrest. 8 others whose names Sandra would learn over the next year as they checked in and made sure Kayla was okay and showed up when needed. They moved every box. Every piece of furniture, everything that could come with and nothing that had to stay behind. By 6 p.m., the apartment was set up. Bed assembled, desk in place, kitchen organized, everything done. Forrest found Sandra in the kitchen unpacking dishes. She okay? He asked. Sandra looked toward the hallway. Kayla was in her new room, door open, standing at the window looking out at the courtyard. I don't know, Sandra said. She hasn't cried yet, not once. She's been talking, eating, acting normal. But she won't let Harold out of her sight. Won't take off the bracelet Sandstone's granddaughter made for her. And she keeps checking the locks. That's normal, Forrest said. She's still in survival mode. The breakdown will come when her brain finally understands she's safe enough to stop performing. When will that be? Could be days. Could be weeks. Forrest paused. You got someone for her to talk to. I called the number Driftwood gave me. Therapist who specializes in trauma. First appointment is Monday. Good. And Sandra, when she does break, when it finally hits her, that's not a bad thing. That's her body letting go of what it's been holding. Let her. Don't try to fix it. Just be there. Sandra nodded, turned back to the dishes. Forrest started to leave, then stopped. My daughter is 11, he said. Plays soccer, loves science, wants to be a veterinarian. About 6 months ago, she asked me why I have nightmares, why I wake up at 3 a.m. and go for rides. He was quiet for a moment. I told her about Afghanistan, about a boy named Amir, about how I couldn't save him. And you know what she said? What she said, maybe you couldn't save him, but you learned how to save other people. Maybe that's what he taught you. Forrest looked toward the hallway, at Kayla standing at the window. Your daughter is going to carry this. That's not something you can prevent. But she's also going to carry what she did. How she survived. How she waited for the right person and made it count. That's not trauma. That's strength. Make sure she knows the difference. He left. Sandra stood in the kitchen and thought about her daughter at the window, about the difference between carrying weight and carrying strength, about how sometimes they were the same thing. Kayla turned away from the window, walked into the kitchen, still holding Harold. I like it, she said. The room, the apartment, all of it. Good, Sandra said. You're safe here. Kayla looked at her mother, at the boxes still unpacked, at the new kitchen that did not smell like the old one, at this place that had no memories of before. Can we stay here? She asked. For a long time. As long as you want, Sandra said. Kayla nodded, went back to her room, closed the door, not all the way, just enough to have a space that was hers. Sandra heard the lock click. Heard Kayla testing it. Once, twice, 3 times, making sure it worked, making sure the door would hold. The trial happened 6 months later. Federal Court, Eastern District of Wyoming. The United States versus Gerald Howarth. Nicole Carter, Patricia Voss, and 5 other operators whose names meant nothing to Kayla but everything to 46 other families. Kayla did not testify in person. Too young. Too traumatic. But her video testimony recorded with a child psychologist present played on day 3. 17 minutes. Every detail she had memorized. Every name, every number, every moment. The jury watched in silence. Watched an 8-year-old explain how she survived 19 hours by being smarter than the adults who were supposed to protect her. When it finished, 3 jurors were crying. The judge called a recess. Patricia Vance testified on day 6. The elementary school teacher from Laramie who had walked past Kayla at the vending machine and driven away with the image of blue lips haunting her. I saw her, Patricia said. Saw the dress, saw that something was wrong, and I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself it wasn't my business. I got in my car and I left. The prosecutor was gentle. What changed, I got a call from a Hells Angels member asking if I'd seen a little girl in a yellow dress, and I realized I had a choice. I could keep being the person who walked away, or I could be the person who came back and said something. Why did you come back? Because someone else didn't walk away. Someone stopped. Someone helped. And the least I could do was tell the truth about what I saw. Patricia looked at the jury. I can't fix that I left, but I can make sure what I saw matters now. Marcus Thornton testified on day 8. The Wyoming state trooper who had seen Kayla at the McDonald's in Casper and accepted Nicole's explanation about the spilled coat. I had 23 years of experience, he said. I had training that said trust calm adults. Trust people who make eye contact and have ready explanations. So when the woman said her daughter spilled on her coat, I believed her. I laughed. I walked away. His voice cracked. I walked away from a child who tried to signal me. The prosecutor gave him a moment. What did you learn that experience isn't enough? The training has blind spots, that we're taught to trust the wrong things. He looked at the jury. There's no protocol that says ask the child directly. There's no standard that says separate the adult from the kid and make sure the answers match. We're trained to trust performances, and traffickers know that. What needs to change? Everything Marcus said. The protocols, the training, the assumption that someone who looks normal is safe. All of it. The defense tried to argue that Nicole was coerced, that she owed money to Gerald, that she was a victim too. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Gerald Howarth got life without parole. Nicole Carter got 45 years. Patricia Voss, the Valley View director, got 38. The 5 other operators got sentences ranging from 15 to 25 years. At sentencing, the judge looked at Gerald. You operated a criminal enterprise for 11 years. You sold 47 children. You used your position as a community volunteer to identify vulnerable families. You used your financial practice to launder money. You convinced yourself you were helping these children find better homes. He paused. You destroyed lives. Systematically, deliberately, for profit. There is no sentence I can give you that will undo that harm, but I can make sure you never do it again. Life without parole was read into the record. Gerald's son was not in the courtroom. He was 17 now, in therapy, living with his aunt, trying to understand how his father could coach soccer on Saturdays and coordinate child trafficking on Sundays. Nicole looked at Sandra before the marshals took her away, mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." Sandra did not respond, just held Kayla's hand and watched them lead Nicole out. Later in the parking lot, Kayla asked if her mother believed the apology. I don't know, Sandra said. Does it matter? Kayla thought about it. Thought about 19 hours in a car with a woman who threatened her and hesitated and called her by name at the end. Thought about how people could be cruel and broken at the same time. Maybe, Kayla said. Someday. 18 months after the rescue, Kayla was in 6th grade at Billings Central Middle School. She had been in therapy for a year and 3 months, had stopped checking locks compulsively after month 7, had stopped having nightmares about yellow dresses and rest stops after month 10. She still carried Harold. Still wore the bracelet Sandstone's granddaughter made. Still kept the photograph of her grandmother Rose in whatever pocket or backpack or locker was closest. But she was better. Not fixed. Better. There was a difference. On a Tuesday in September, she was walking to her locker when she saw a girl sitting on the floor outside the counselor's office. The girl was maybe 10, small for her age, holding her backpack like it was the only thing keeping her together. Kayla recognized the look, had worn it for 19 hours. The combination of terror and hope and exhaustion. The face of someone who had been failed enough times to stop expecting anything but hadn't quite given up yet. Kayla sat down on the floor beside her. Hi, I'm Kayla. The girl looked up. Didn't say anything. You okay? I'm fine. The automatic answer? The performance. You don't look fine. You look like I looked when I was waiting for someone to notice I needed help. The girl's eyes went wide. I'm not... Kayla pulled a card from her pocket. Driftwood's card. The one he'd given her 19 months ago. I'm not asking you to tell me anything. But if you need help, there are some people who will listen. This man is a counselor. He specializes in helping kids who've been through things that are hard to talk about. If you call him and tell him what's happening, he will help. I promise. How do you know? Because I called him, Kayla said. And he showed up. The girl took the card, looked at it, put it in her pocket. Thank you, she whispered. The counselor's door opened. Mrs. Ramirez stepped out, saw Kayla sitting with the girl. Kayla, thank you for keeping Emma company. Emma ready to come in. Emma stood, looked at Kayla one more time, then walked into the office. Kayla watched the door close. Stood up, went to her locker, got her books, went to class. Did not think about it again until 3 months later when Emma sent her a letter. 3 sentences, written in careful handwriting on lined paper. You were right. He listened. I'm safe now. Kayla kept the letter in the hidden pocket of a jacket her mother bought her. The jacket had the pocket sewn in specifically for treasures, some things you carry with you. 7 years after the rescue, Kayla Thompson was 19 years old, sophomore at Montana State University, majoring in social work with a focus on child welfare and trauma-informed care. She had an internship at the Yellowstone County Child Advocacy Center, the same center that had processed her case in the weeks after she was rescued. Her supervisor was a woman named Rachel Kim, 12 years in trafficking cases, the kind of experience that meant you had seen everything and were still surprised by how much worse it could get. On a Tuesday in October, Rachel called Kayla into her office. We have a new case. Girl just came in. 15 years old. Recovered from a placement facility in Nevada yesterday. She won't talk to the investigators, won't talk to the counselors. But she keeps asking if there's someone here who's been through it. Rachel looked at Kayla. Only if you're ready. I won't ask you to do this if it's going to... I'm ready, Kayla said. The girl's name was Sophia. She sat in the interview room with her arms crossed, staring at the wall. The same controlled stillness Kayla remembered from the rest stop. The same performed normality. The same eyes that tracked everything and showed nothing. Kayla sat down across from her. Didn't say anything for 10 seconds. Then my name is Kayla. 7 years ago, I was taken from my front yard in Billings. I was 8. I was gone for 19 hours. I was being transported to a placement facility in Idaho when I made a hand sign to a stranger in a rest stop parking lot. That stranger read the sign. I'm here because he did. Sophia's eyes shifted. Looked at Kayla for the first time. You're the girl, Sophia said. The Wyoming case. Yeah. I'm her. How did you know who to trust? I didn't. I made a guess. I assessed 23 adults over 5 stops and concluded that 23 of them weren't the right person. And then I saw someone who looked at me like I was a person who needed help instead of a problem to ignore. So I took a chance. What if he hadn't known sign language? Then I would have tried something else. Or I would have waited for the next stop. Or I would have kept memorizing license plates and phone numbers until someone finally listened. Kayla leaned forward, because that's what you do when the system moves too slowly. You build your own case file and you wait for someone who can use it. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. I memorized things too, she said finally. What did you memorize? Addresses, phone numbers, names. The woman who ran the facility, she thought I was sleeping, but I heard her on the phone. I heard names, I heard dollar amounts, I remembered all of it. Kayla pulled out a notebook, slid it across the table with a pen. Write it down, everything you remember, every name, every number, every address. And then we're going to give it to the investigators and they're going to use it the same way they used mine. Sophia picked up the pen. She wrote for 43 minutes. When she finished, she had filled 11 pages. Rachel Kim read those pages at 4:17 p.m. By 6:30, the FBI had opened a new case file. By 9 p.m., they had identified 3 additional facilities in the same network. 6 months later, Sophia testified at a federal trial. 11 people were convicted. The network that had operated for 14 years across 6 states was dismantled. At the sentencing hearing, Sophia asked if she could make a statement. The judge said yes. Sophia stood, looked at the defendants, looked at the prosecutor, looked at the gallery where Kayla was sitting in the back row. 7 years ago, a girl my age made a hand sign in a parking lot, and someone answered. I heard about that case, I remembered it. And when I got my chance, I did what she did. I waited for the right person, and I gave them everything I knew. She paused. This is what happens when one person refuses to quit. This is what happens when someone finally listens. She sat down. After the hearing, Kayla met Sophia in the hallway outside the courtroom. You did it, Kayla said. We did it, Sophia said. You taught me how. They stood in the hallway. 2 women who had survived 19 hours and 14 years. 2 women who had refused to quit. 2 women who had waited for the right person and made it count. They didn't say anything else. Some things don't require words. Forrest Brennan was 51 years old when he sat in the parking lot of Cheyenne Regional Medical Center and looked at his phone. The message was from a number he didn't recognize. My name is Sophia. 7 years ago, you saved a girl named Kayla. She just saved me. Thank you for teaching her how. Forrest read it twice, put the phone down, looked at the sky. He thought about Kandahar, about Amir, about holding a 7-year-old boy who was dying and signing safe when it was a lie, about carrying that weight for 14 years. He thought about a rest stop, about a girl in a yellow dress, about a hand rising to chin height in a blizzard, about the vest he put around her shoulders and the rabbit he pulled from a glove compartment. He thought about 47 children, about 11 years of systematic failure, about a network that operated in plain sight because it spoke the system's language better than the system did. And he thought about this message from someone he'd never met, someone Kayla had helped the way Forrest had helped her. He didn't know if the debt from Kandahar was paid. He would never know, but he knew that today, in this parking lot, reading this message, he had done something that rippled forward instead of back. He texted back 4 words, "Tell her I'm proud." Then he put the phone in his pocket, started his truck, drove home to his wife and daughter and the ordinary Tuesday waiting for him. He didn't save the message. Didn't need to. He would remember it the way he remembered every case. Not as trophies, as proof that the work mattered. At Montana State University, in a small classroom on the 3rd floor of the social work building, Kayla Thompson stood in front of 15 undergrad students and taught them something their textbooks had not covered. This is the sign for help. Hand to chin, palm inward, fingers together. She demonstrated. Every child should know this, because someday they might need it. Or someday they might see someone else using it. And if you know the language, you can answer. A student raised their hand. How many kids actually know sign language? Not enough, Kayla said. That's why we teach it. She pulled up a slide. Statistics. Amber Alert response times. Interstate coordination failures. The 9-hour gap that had appeared in 2 federal audits with 0 corrective action. The system has gaps, she said. We're going to talk about how to fix them. But while we're fixing them, kids are still moving through those gaps, so we also need to talk about what happens when the system fails. How do we make sure children have tools to protect themselves when adults can't or won't another hand? Isn't that putting responsibility on kids that should belong to adults? Yes, Kayla said. It is, and it's not fair, but fair doesn't keep kids safe. Knowledge does, action does. So we teach them the language, we train adults to recognize it. We close the gaps one protocol at a time. She clicked to the next slide. And we never ever walk away from unfinished sentences in parking lots. The class was silent. Kayla looked at them. 19 and 20-year-olds who would graduate and go into child services and advocacy and therapy and law enforcement. Who would be the people standing in parking lots making calculations about 40 minutes against asking one question? You're going to see things Kayla said. Things that feel wrong but you can't quite name why. You're going to have instincts that tell you something is off. And you're going to be tempted to ignore those instincts because you don't have proof. Because you don't want to be wrong. Because getting involved is complicated. She paused. Don't ignore them. Ask the question. Make the call. Be the person who stops instead of the person who walks away wondering. Because sometimes the difference between a child who survives and a child who doesn't is one adult who chose to trust their gut. After class, a student approached. Young woman, maybe 21. "Miss Thompson, I just wanted to say—" She stopped. Started again. "I was Emma, the girl in the hallway. In 6th grade. You gave me a card and I called the number and someone helped me. I wouldn't be here without that." Kayla looked at her. At this young woman who had taken a card and made a call and survived and was now studying to help other kids do the same. "You would have found a way," Kayla said, "but I'm glad I could help make it easier. You taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. That's what I want other kids to know." "Then teach them," Kayla said. "You're here, you're studying this, you survived. Use that." Emma nodded, walked away. Kayla watched her go, thought about circles closing, about broken cycles, about the way one person helping one person could change everything. On a Saturday in November, 7 years and 9 months after the rescue, Forrest Brennan stood on a soccer field in Casper watching his daughter play. She was 18 now, senior year, full ride to Montana State on a soccer scholarship, planning to study engineering, at halftime. She ran over to the sideline. "Dad, there's a deaf kid on the other team. Number 12. I tried to tell her good game after she scored, but I don't think she heard me." Forrest pulled off his vest, walked to the opposing sideline, found number 12, waited until the girl looked at him, then signed. "Good game. You play well." The girl's face lit up. Signed back, "Thank you. You know ASL. My daughter wanted to tell you good game. Didn't know how." The girl looked past Forrest to where his daughter was standing. Signed to her, "Thank you for the game." Forrest's daughter signed back, slowly, carefully, using the basics he'd taught her after Kayla. "You're welcome." Small moment. Ordinary Saturday. 2 kids communicating across a language barrier because one father learned sign language in a war and taught his daughter because a little girl in a yellow dress had needed someone who understood. Ripples. On the drive home, Forrest's daughter asked about Kayla, how she was doing, if they still kept in touch. "She's in college now," Forrest said, "studying social work, helping kids, like you helped her, like she helped herself." Forrest was quiet for a moment. "I just spoke her language. She did the rest. Do you think about her a lot?" "Sometimes. Not as much as I used to. She's safe now. Building a life, that's all I wanted for her." "And the boy from Afghanistan, Amir. Yeah. I think about him too. Does it still hurt?" Forrest considered the question. Thought about weight carried and weight transformed. About debts that can't be paid but can maybe be honored. "It hurts different now," he said finally. "Used to hurt like failure. Now it hurts like memory. Like something that taught me what matters. What matters showing up, listening, knowing the language when someone needs you to speak it." His daughter was quiet. "Then I'm glad you showed up for her. Me too." In Billings, Montana, Sandra Thompson stood in her living room and looked at the boxes. Kayla was packing for college. Montana State. Social work program. Full scholarship plus grants plus work study. Leaving in 2 weeks. The apartment was full of everything Kayla had accumulated over 7 years. Clothes and books and the stuffed rabbit Harold, who was worn thin but still present. The bracelet from Sandstone's granddaughter. The photograph of Rose that had been laminated and relaminated 3 times as the edges wore through. "You sure you have everything?" Sandra asked. Kayla looked around her room. At the blue walls. At the window that faced the courtyard instead of the street. At the locks she had stopped checking compulsively 4 years ago but still tested occasionally just to remember they worked. "Yeah," she said. "I'm sure." Sandra helped carry boxes to the car. Helped load them. Helped her daughter prepare to leave for a life Sandra had spent 7 years making possible. When the last box was loaded, Kayla turned back to the apartment. "Thank you," she said. "For moving, for staying, for all of it." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Kayla looked at her mother. "You gave me a room that didn't remember. You let me heal at my own pace. You didn't push. You just stayed. That's everything." Sandra pulled her daughter into a hug. Held her the way she'd held her in the hospital 7 years ago. Held her and let her go. 'Cause that was what you did when your child was ready to leave. "You call if you need anything," Sandra said. "I will." "And Kayla, when you help those kids, when you teach them the language, make sure they know it's not their job to save themselves. But if they have to, they can." "I will," Kayla said. "I promise." At Montana State in a dorm room on the 3rd floor of Langford Hall, Kayla unpacked her boxes, put Harold on the desk, hung the photograph of Rose on the wall, set up her laptop and her textbooks and her life. The first week was orientation, meeting roommates, learning the campus, sitting through lectures about academic integrity and student resources and how to navigate college. The second week was classes. Introduction to Social Work, Human Development, Trauma-Informed Care. Kayla took notes, raised her hand, participated. In Trauma-Informed Care, the professor asked the class to introduce themselves and share why they chose social work. Kayla waited until everyone else had gone. Then she said, "My name is Kayla Thompson. I'm from Billings. I'm here because when I was 8 years old, I was kidnapped. And someone who knew sign language saw me make a hand signal and save my life. I want to make sure other kids have someone who understands when they need help." The class was silent. The professor said quietly, "Thank you for sharing that." Kayla nodded, sat down, didn't elaborate, didn't need to. After class, 3 students approached, each with their own story, each carrying their own weight. Each here because someone had helped them and they wanted to help others. That was how it started. Slowly. Connection by connection, story by story, building the network that would become Kayla's life's work, teaching children the language of help, training adults to recognize it, closing the gaps one protocol at a time, being the person who stops instead of the person who walks away. The rest stop still looks the same. Laramie Summit, Interstate 80 westbound. Covered picnic area, vending machines, the blizzards still come, the temperature still drops, visibility still goes to nothing, the system still has gaps. Amber alerts still delay, coordination still fails, people still walk past children in distress because the adult with them performs normality. But now there are more people who know the language, more people who teach it, more people who stop and ask and listen. Forrest Brennan is 51. Still rides, still wears the vest, still thinks about Amir, still thinks about Kayla, still shows up when called. Sandra Thompson is 47. Still works at the hospital. Still lives in the apartment with the locks and the courtyard view. Still keeps Kayla's room ready for when she visits. Kayla Thompson is 19, studies social work, interns at advocacy centers, teaches sign language to children, carries Harold and Rose's photograph, and the weight of 19 hours transformed into purpose. And somewhere in classrooms and parking lots and rest stops and offices and homes across Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and every state where children need someone to see them, people are learning the language. Hand to chin, palm inward, fingers together. Help, one sign, one person, one moment of being seen. That's how you change a story. Not by fixing systems overnight, not by eliminating an evil, not by guaranteeing safety, but by teaching the language. By training the eyes, by being the person who stops when everyone else walks by answering when a child's hands speak. Because protection doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears a vest and knows how to read silence. An 8-year-old girl stood in a Wyoming rest stop parking lot in a yellow sundress, her fingertips blue from cold, and raised her hand to her chin in a language most people don't speak. Today she's 19, studying to become the person who teaches that language to every child she meets. The rest stop looks the same. The blizzards still come, the system still moves too slowly, but now there's one more person in the world who knows how to answer when a child signs for help. And that in the end is how you save a life, one hand at a time.